Hello and welcome to today's Magnetic News episode. This is episode number 6, and we are talking about how to overcome codependency and move into interdependence, and how to really understand the dynamics of codependency, what it looks like in a relationship, why we need to move out of that, and how to step into real power and magnetism and unconditional love. I am joined by Sunshine Marie, who is building a library of sacred works to handing over to you.
To share with my granddaughters. That's the main focus and the main purpose, the intention. I'm a writer and an artist, and I'm currently compiling a library for my granddaughters. They always say that you need to, be what it is that you needed, and right now I could use a library from my grandmother.
That is so beautiful. That intention is so powerful. And it won't just be your granddaughters. You are bringing a legacy to the world for the daughters of the world, which is a vision and a mission that is very strong to my own heart. And I think it is the priestess code. I think it is the role of the priestess and the women who have chosen to go through very challenging experiences in order to bring that wisdom so that everybody can learn from it and we can evolve as a species.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I have the 1333, so my life is all about storytelling and sharing the lessons that I learned from my experiences.
Yes. And so what Sunshine's talking about here is both of us are projectors. Both of us are use gene keys as a tool in our work. I think you also use gene keys in your work.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And we also, well, a human design specialist. I think we also both use human design in our work. So the channel 1333 is a channel that goes from the throat down to the G center. Am I correct there? I've forgotten it. So, and
Yes.
yeah, and the yeah, it's the channel of the storyteller. So 33 comes from the throat center. It's all about telling stories, wisdom from the past. I could be wrong. I could have got it the other way around. Anyway, yes. So, and I also have 35 from my throat, which is also about transforming others through lived experience and through the stories and the wisdom that has come from those experiences, which is what this podcast is about. So, let's begin by defining what codependency is.
I think the best way that I could define it is to believe that your power lies outside of you. So I think, um, just society as a whole and life will kind of have you leaning on religion to tell you where power comes from and who God is, or, you know, um, making you think that, people in high political places have power over you or you're a victim to them. And so generally, if we can just shift into the mindset that I am connected through source to source and it is internal and my power comes from within, and thinking any other way kind of gives you that codependency frame where you're looking for someone else to be what only you can be for yourself.
I love that you explained it in such a broad definition as well, because I think you're so right that people can just be codependent with their business or code. So basically, looking for something outside of themselves to give them either power, validation, or to control. When you hear somebody saying something like, you're making me feel like this,
Hmm.
that's an example of codependency. So when I was at the beginning of my journey of self-development and breaking the chains of being enmeshed with others and the world, one of the very first things I learned, and I think this is important for projectors, especially if I know you're defined in your emotional center, but I'm an open emotional center. And clinging on and being responsible and being that super empath. Oh, like when somebody's telling you their sob story, you're properly immersed in it and you're part of it, and like I need to help you and save you and la 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 la. And the very first thing I did when I broke away was get really clear on my emotions are my emotions.
Mhm.
Your emotions are your emotions, because it's amazing how often people will say to you or try and make you responsible for their emotions.
Yeah, and we learned that, well, I know I learned that, and I do also have an open emotional
Oh,
center. I
do you?
learned that in childhood,
Yeah.
um, just what I was gathering by observing my parents,
Mm,
and that, okay, well, if I come into a room, I need to assess how everybody is feeling and what's going on with everybody so that I know how to approach the room so that, there's not an explosion or, I don't cause a disruption in this space. So just kind of having that as a core belief kind of puts you in a place where not only, like you said, is it that you depend on other people, but you also think that you're responsible for other people as well.
and, um, how has it shown up in relationships for you?
Um,
That childhood conditioning, how did it then evolve into relational pattern?
Yeah, I definitely looked for partners who reminded me of that like potentially explosive energy. So, in Gene Keys, it talks about basically like pheromones is what attracts us to people. And so it was like, I was trying to sniff around for somebody that smelled like my parents, that very, unpredictable, explosive energy and like that push and pull.
Mm. I think, myself and every woman who's listening to this will resonate with that, because, as we know, we are attracted to that survival imprint, that early conditioning imprint from our family of origin. So I also was deeply attracted to very violent and abusive men in my earlier years. I mean, from the age of 14, my first relationship was with my stepfather. Not literally, but the guy. He was a bit older than me, and for from the age of 14 to 18, I was in an abusive relationship, and he just mimicked the exact same thing that I was experiencing at home.
Yeah, well, I went to a psychiatrist some years after coming out of an abusive relationship, and she was, I was describing to her, like, my older children's father versus my husband that I had just left out of the situation. And she was like, what changed? Why did you, start to attract this different kind of man? Because it feels like, in my youth, my self-esteem was a little bit different, and the first um one of the first crushes that I had, I ended up, later in life having a child by him, but I was attracted to him as a 7-year-old child, and so I just feel like as I got older, the shadow aspects of my parents that I may not have been aware of because they maybe didn't reveal certain things to me became very attractive to me. And that is kinda how my attraction shifted, as I became an adult, and, a lot of my attraction also was based around survival of, like, this man was willing to come in and take care of me and the 2 children that I came to the relationship with, and, at the core, I believed that I needed someone else to do that, and I was incapable of it. By the time I met him, I was 19, I had 2, children already, and I just felt like, "Well, I need a man to come and help take care of us financially."
Wow, that's so interesting. And so what I'm hearing here, this is the model of the codependent entering into a codependent relationship from a place of need as well, because
Mhm.
this was a so again, you're talking from, I have 2 kids. I'm not even, and do you know, because I was reading a book yesterday on the divine feminine, divine masculine, and it was talking about eros, and it was talking about these different types of relationships that are available for us when we're moving into, when we decide, when we're consciously choosing love. And this is the generation of women that we get to be now in our riper ages. We get to move into conscious partnership, which is definitely a soul desire of mine. And I also believe, as I said the other day in one of my posts, that I want to go really deeply into people's love maps and their soul contracts, because it's not even just, I think if we go a little bit deeper, it's not just that we had come into specific families of origin where we learned these patterns and observed these patterns and lineages where we had to break these cycles. I believe we consciously chose this as souls for our personal soul evolution. So if you understand Gene Key's philosophy, Gene Keys will say we all come in with this core wound, and this core wound is our soul work. It's our incarnation work, and it's not just our work; it's the work that we do as part of the bigger fractal, the geometry of life, so that we can support the collective to evolve. So as we go through our enlightenment journey and meet this wound and this challenge and over again in different contexts, we then come and bring that wisdom and break it and evolve everybody else. So it's everyone's playing their part, and which is again interesting, because in 2019 what kept coming through, see how a body of work develops over time. It was individual responsibility. So I choose to become interdependent. I choose to break out, to become more emotionally intelligent. And as I do that, people around me transform. And so it's individual responsibility, collective success. And that's kind of a microcosm within myself of the macrocosm of what Gene Keys is. So if I shift, the world shifts. And th- um but if you look at it from a different, like we look at it from a different, I did no one told me this, but it was literally a direct transmission from me, which is why I was able to embody that as a deep understanding. It wasn't somebody saying to me, this is the truth about what happens, like you end up coming in with a soul and blah blah blah. I was like, oh, this is the reality. This has come through me, so I get to live that from a place of, as an assumption of life. So by having that assumption, it really transformed how, and this was at the beginning, this was 2019 when I literally had like s come out of like a string. It was like one man after another, 2 men. One has actually just got an M charge. One's just actually just got an M charge, literally on March the 2nd. So okay, let's go back. 2015, I'm in my huntress. I'm deep in my workaholism. I'm deep, deep in my masculine. I'm for my community. I'm working as a teacher, inner city London. I'm for everything in my life is about my career. And not just because of that, because I'm serving the children that I serve. Like people who knew me, like I would work 100-hour weeks, not because I was forced to, but because I deeply, deeply was passionate about the work. But I didn't realize that was driven by underlying patterns as well. So this rejection of intimacy, this protection of having to never having masculine provision was also a big part of why I'd created this wounded huntress. There was no balance. So I was taking substance to work. I was fighting for the kids. This is a bit codependent as well. Everyone's problem was my problem. My friend used to say, why is this save the world? You're always saving the world. And I was like, because like I have to. And that's attracted a lot of narcissistic characters to me and effeminate men
Mhm.
to me, because I was always trying to save other people, these men, these wounded men, because my fathers, both of them, were also wounded, very wounded. They were just wounded men. They didn't have work. They weren't providers. They just seemed to me to be quite pitiful as men. So I never had a vision of, I didn't realize this was what was happening, but I didn't have that vision. Anyway, 2015, I was in a 9-year relationship with a guy called, well, it doesn't matter what his name was. We were in a 9-year relationship and it was okay, but there was no real passion. It was just kind of convenient,
Mm.
as a projector actually, but also same angry rapper, same kind of guy on the roads, but deep wisdom, philosophical, like, but very, very intense, very angry, and but not violent, not abusive. And he actually plucked me out of that first relationship. And so we ended up together, and it was just convenient. Like your one was a need, we were in a need. Like it was a convenient thing. There was no eros. And then 2000. And 15, I fell in love in that whirlwind relationship with the Ghost of Lovers Past number 3, which this whole body of work is built around. And then he left after the 4th month on the Valentine's Day and went back to raise his son, but it was actually with his wife and his son. Fair enough. I didn't know it was the wife. We had even had, we had a holiday to Thailand booked in the April. So from November to February the 14th, you've been with me every day. It's this whirlwind. I'm thinking, this is the first time my heart has gone, wow, this is what I have been missing. Like now I can be it, like I can open. It was the first time that I was like, I'm going to open my heart. And and we went to Thailand and he came and I still didn't know. I found a ring on like the day before we were leaving. And I said, are you married? And he was like, no, it's my grandmother's ring. And we get off the plane, never see him again. But a week later, I get a call, and it's from the wife, and that's how that all unfolded. So after that, I go into literally, no joke. Like this is so weird for me. I go into mourning, like 2 years. I'm crying in the supermarket. I'm walking up like like the pain. I've never known an attachment like that where I was just honestly broken. And it was weird for me because everyone was like, God, you're just like, you're a little G. Like, you don't have feelings. I'm a Capricorn as well, right? So I'm a wounded huntress and a Capricorn. And this guy, they're like, you're a simp for this guy. I just loved him. And so, it's wild. So then I go pretty destructive as well. Like I'm having the time of my life. Like money's flowing. I'm flying all over the world. I'm destructive. I'm champagne every day, weed. I'm off my nut, and I'm working 100-hour weeks. I've got great opportunity. Like things are happening in the huntress life, but my internal world is like. Psh. And I go to carnival and I meet a guy from my childhood. And I'm saying all of this to show you how this pattern was insidious, and anyway, I'll show you. So we go to carnival. I meet this guy, and immediately, like we because it's carnival, we're like boom. We go to the house, have sex straight away. Goes down on me, and then that was it. We're together. There's no dates. There's no planning. I don't know you from fucking Adam, but suddenly you're in my house now. We've met, and I've taken you home, and that's it. We're together. And you got a key. Now, within weeks, this guy started to show, like, he really did, he was nuts, honestly. And I, like, I don't know, I got robbed by him. I got strangled. And but he was hiding things like this. He was more extreme than anyone I'd ever known. Like he was hiding things and really trying to, he just changed like Jekyll very, very quickly.
Mhm.
And I think what the day that I think the strangling, no, it wasn't even that. Something happened and I'm now in like kind of CPTSD energy. Like my nervous system is like all shook. Something happened, someone turned up because I got rid of him. I was like, get out of my house. And he went and that's where I got robbed. And but then someone knocked at the door and I thought it was him. And I was so shook, that's when I actually called the police. The police, when they found out who it was, so I didn't know any of this, but when they found out who it was, this guy had a record as long as his arm. Well, very, very long. And they were trying to use me now to nail this guy. So I'm like, oh, but I didn't want this. I just want to live my life. I'm a teacher. I'm a professional woman, da 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 da. And they were just like, no, we are doing him for domestic violence. Like, that's it. And I'm like, this is not right. So I had all wild stuff. My nervous system's like properly out there. But then what happened was the same to another guy who was a booty call, who was in the same thing, a road man, la 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 la, on the road, who had been a booty call for like since 2013. He was like one day, oh, can I come and move? This was after about a year after this. He's like, oh, can I move in for 2 weeks? He'd asked before, and I'd said no because I'm busy. I don't really want you. You're already pretty much living off me. I don't really want you around me in that way. But I was weak. As in, I was so physically exhausted, and after this is now 2018, 3 years of destruction. My spirit, my body, and this was just the precursor to my dark night of the soul. He said, "Can I just come and stay for 2 weeks?" He came came in the house, he went nuts. He was like that. So once he was in, and he was he's a very violent man. I mean, like there was one time he had the iron and he was steaming. He was just screaming like salad, word salad, like like going mad, and like and the steam on the iron was just getting bigger. And I was like, I need to get out of the house because I don't want the iron on my face. And so I left the house. This was anyway. Things went deep, and then I got rid. Luckily, I was able to get rid of him. But all to say, just turns out last week that he actually someone let me know because I dreamt of him a few nights ago, that he actually just killed somebody. Well, we don't know because he's been charged, he's on remand. But this is what I'm saying, this is the kind of the level. We're not and when I say narcissist, I'm talking about very deeply wounded men. And they were in this was exactly these guys were my stepfather who I was raised with. Um Now, I can't remember why I was saying why I led to that, but do you remember why it was why I was
Yeah,
saying
we were just talking about patterns kinda repeating.
I think it was basically to say that when I decided I wanted sacred union in 2024, the universe sent me 3 specific ghosts from the past. One of them was the guy from 2018. And when I broke away from that, I had this awakening. So I'm traveling the earth now and I'm wandering the earth and I'm connected to source. I'm connected to angels. I'm my higher self. I'm going into events and I'm just getting like so much like I'm getting his mum speaking to me from her grave and telling me like how that happened and stuff like that. So I messaged him and was just like, look, again, that savior thing though, as well. It's like, I kind of understand all your trauma, da 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 da. But he did change, like he had some form of shift and he went down a religious he's a 6'2" as well. Went down a religious pathway and into Islam and because he's got I think it was the left angle cross of correction or something like that. It was he needs this sort of his incarnation is it was about incarnation. It was about that's what exactly the point of this.
Choosing the route.
Yes, it was the fact that in that 2019, after all of these experiences, I got the download that this was a soul evolution experience, and that shifted everything. There was no pain, there was no anger, there was no resentment. It was, "Oh, this is the learning. This is what I needed to evolve." So, yeah.
Yeah, and I wanna say it's the 19th gene key that, the shadow is codependency, and it talks about us being attracted to certain people, like you said, to learn lessons or whatever, and it explains that, when you learn the lessons, you're able to shift into a higher frequency, and so you attract the same fractals, but at a different frequency of the same energy, so, yeah. I saw, some ancestral patterns, that align with my husband that kind of showed me, okay, this is why you chose this individual because you get to break so many of these things that have been repeating in your bloodline through your children that you have with this individual. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes so much sense. Because like I said, a lot of the things that were qualities within him were, things that I didn't know were in my bloodline that I hadn't even taken out of the shadow of myself in order to become conscious of them. Like when you were talking about the gentleman that you were with in the iron and, him being violent. Well, I was violent, and in ways that I had never explored until they were triggered in that relationship, right? Because like the last straw for me was we had gotten into it and he had, kind of like overpowered me. And as he was walking away, I picked up the iron and I was about to let it go and one of my kids came out, and so I just barely missed him just because I kinda, like, in that last second decided, "No, I'm not gonna hit him," or whatever, and so it's just like, being made aware of that shadow within me and that energy that I needed to evolve, within myself and be, okay, how do I channel this rage? How do I use this in a productive way? What is at the root of this rage? Like, what is it that I'm afraid of that kind of like really bust open this whole new level of evolution?
Question there. Was it reactive rage or was it you were actually so when do you know what I mean by reactive rage? So there's that thing in abusive relationships where somebody pushes you so far that you end up being violent. Or were you just naturally violent with him in that dynamic?
Yeah, so I had a problem with jealousy,
Okay.
and that jealousy is kind of what fueled my rage. Um, and I called myself that night trying to like resolve the jealousy issue. I was like, "Hey, you're not going to stop doing whatever it is that you're doing, so let's just open up the marriage." Right? Is what, I was thinking or whatever cuz at that time I had found out that he was um what's the word I wanna use? That he was participating in, like, human trafficking, I guess is what we
Right.
can call it. And it's not like, from overseas, but any level of selling women to me is human trafficking, right? So, and come to find out, my ancestors on my father's side ran a brothel, and
Right.
it's just, something that I didn't know about, and then coming to find out, like, he has this pattern or whatever, but I say all that to say that, yes, he has this pattern, but this is also something that's in my line that needs to be resolved, and so, like I said, that jealousy was just really, like, eating me up and taking over me, because I felt, inadequate of like, well, why does he need other women? It has to be something wrong with me. And I was internalizing that back in that codependency thing of like, well, if there's something wrong with this other person, it must be connected to me somehow.
Girl, and this is what I went through last year, which I was so shocked about. But before I say that, I want to say, in terms of being able to see what was that person mirroring that was unconscious within myself. So when I finally went to Thailand after that final experience, so I just got the tremor of truth there. I began shadow work for the first time. That was it. I was like, okay, what is going on? And that was the first time I started to really look within. And I looked at him, and I started to see that he was. It was. I didn't even begin with he's mirroring my father. It began with he's mirroring elements of narcissism in me, narcissistic traits, and he's um, mirroring avoidance. So that's when I began to see how
Mm.
avoidant to intimacy I was, and how blocked, like how I was very. We were mirrors in that way. So there was like I could see that, and how I was transactional with many men. You know, there was a transactional thing about it. Um, So I said, right, I started with this affirmation. The first time I ever did an affirmation, I was taught by this guy. I'd gone to get some EFT and something else done. And it was, I give and receive love. And I look
Mm.
for evidence of these in every time and every space. And he showed me how to do it in this, like, I give and receive love. I give and receive, I give and receive love. I give and receive love. And I look for evidence of these in every time. And that was it. And that's when I began to shift that pattern. And I think I said in another post the other day, yeah, I did yesterday, how after I did that first level of work, my whole experience, the masculine that began to show up for me was very, very different, very gentle, very loving, and they were mirroring that evolution within me. I what I was going to say, you said, what was the thing you just said a minute ago? Do you remember? No.
We talked about, my rage and then like just what pattern in my jealousy kind of brought that out.
Internalizing. Yeah, it was the
Hmm.
internalizing.
Oh.
Same with like, so what I realized, so 7 years apart. So look, the ghost of lovers past came back. He came back, and we sat and we spoke, and there was no charge. I'd evolved. So 7 years had gone. My cellular memory had gone. There was respect, but there was no. We're not going back down that road. There was none of. It was like he came to show completion. No attraction, none of that. No pursuing. Blah blah blah. Great. Then the ghost of lovers past number 3 also came back, which I was surprised about. This was the guy after 10 years. So this was 7 years. The catalyst of the first awakening. This guy, who the one I fell in love with and went back to the wife, he came back in a January of 25. Out of after 10 years, and I never thought I would ever see him again, and that's where, like you said in a post the other day, this intensity. So that this hadn't been resolved in me, because now for 7 years I've been wandering around. I've been alone, really. I've been in a few communities, but I've been isolated because deep in I've been pulled out of society ultimately. And I'm studying human design, gene keys, all my energetic stuff, shamanic train, everything. It's like I went into like a monk mode for like 6 years, and I came out of very occasionally. So when he's turned up, I've got this surge of sexual energy, and I'm telling you, it burned. It was like fire burning through my body from my root and my sacral. And for days and days, I had this energy that I've never experienced. Like I was pulling weights, I was exercising, I had to like move it, move it, move it. And so to me, I'm like, this is my soulmate. This is he's come back, and this is exactly and I rang a friend, I'm like, "We're gonna get married," and da, 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 and she's like, "Really?" And I'm like, "Yeah, like, trust me." But then loads of synchronicities were happening as well, and I was, like, fueling this fire of illusion and fantasy. But really what it was just the childhood imprint. He was my dad. So the first men that I had to deal with was my stepfather, the angry man. This guy was now my actual father, the imprints that I'd internalized. And I say all of that to say, I had in fact, when we came off the plane from I was already, again, leading a school, and I was studying The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, and I was actually studying pro independence, interdependence
Mhm.
at that time. So I was doing self-development work. And I remember sitting next to him at the airport, and I was talking about it with him because I wanted to evolve. I wanted this kind of conscious partnership then, not aware fully of it. But anyway, we get to when he comes back, that year was designed to show me and burn and purge through every single pattern that I hadn't been aware of in preparation. I believe in preparation for the conscious partnership that is coming.
Mm.
But it was when he ultimately rejected me, which for the second time, I had this deep internalized belief that it was because of me. There was something wrong. I was unworthy, and I was shocked because of the level of it, like who I thought I was. It was weird for me to be experiencing this. So I had to go and do that work and transform it. But but I did get, because 59 is my SQ, and this is the imprint of the inner child. So it was all year 59. I kept seeing snails, and in the dream arc,
Mm.
snail literally represents the spiral, and it is the emotional body. So all it was showing me was like this guy came back. I don't even send it. I received from my higher self a desire for sacred union, because prior to that, no interest. Career, still on the career thing. But it was like your evolution now is about intimacy, because your bigger work is really helping the world to transform intimacy, like on multiple different levels. So yeah, internalizing. If you are making somebody else's validation mean something about you, rather than being able to literally detach and just. And I was very detached. That's what I'm saying. To observe myself was very uncomfortable and weird, considering how many years I'd done. But this is why I think this work's so powerful, because there are many high achieving women who are still locked in those cycles, and it could be easily broken. And I've developed a system for that, by the way. And so, and Sunshine has many, many. I think actually you've got that book, the workbook that people can sign up to. Is that true for the codependent overcome?
Yes, I put together, it's not exactly a workbook, but you can move through it that way. That gives you a list of things that you need to kinda evolve through in order to shed the codependent patterns, and it's things like accountability, which is, what we've been talking about is really saying, hey, I'm all powerful, to the extent of my experience, and I am not subject to anyone else or in need of anyone else in anything that I've experienced. I've chosen on a cosmic level to experience it, and it is for my benefit in some fashion. And then you can move into like radical honesty, which is where we do the shadow work, right? Of saying, oh my God, this is what this person was reflecting back to me. And so, yeah, definitely a whole system.
Yeah, beautiful. And again, as projectors, this is our specialism. And for me, what came out of that, plus the 7 years before and the earlier work in 7 years of evolution, is the receptivity codes and this, again, this whole system uh, of working on an energetic level, on a shamanic level, because I'm taking people into their psyche on a shamanic level, subconscious, rewiring, recoding subconscious, and then identity. So creating that identity shift. So there's two ways that you can approach this, and if you're interested, reach out to either of us. Um,
And like what you were saying about integration, it's like, we have all of this information. Like you said, you are so far along in your journey, and it was just kind of surprising to observe, you going through this experience or whatever. But I think part of that is like you have to go through it one time consciously. Like,
yeah.
you've done it unconsciously all those times, and but then you come up with this healing, and it's almost a theory until you're back in the situation and you're able to actually apply the wisdom and show that you've learned the lessons in that karmic cycle, that you're able to elevate the frequency or whatever. And an indication of like an elevated frequency and a different level of traction is going to be devotion,
Oh God.
because that element a lot of times is what's missing, like what you said with those hot, quick, deeply intense, fireworky kind of things, is they are great in that moment, but they lack the devotion on some level. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and do you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to talk too much about him because I think it's a little disrespectful, but well, as I think more about how he's showing up, he's hypersexual. He's amazing. He's now extracting all of his worth by his ability to to sexually. He is a master when it comes to sex, which is why it's so easy for women to get. And he is
Mhm.
the one where every woman's crazy. Like every, I'm thinking, I wonder why. Because- but
That'll do it.
yeah, yeah, it's not just just thinking about it. Whew. Yeah. No, but he's deriving his value from that because he's not able to give and show up in a different way. And so there's work to be done. But that's not my work. See, and I even showed up in codependency there as well, like trying to like, oh, you need to heal, you need to like, no, 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 no. It's like no, just accept people as they are and keep it moving.
Yeah, and even with that, like, she's crazy thing, in my experience with the person who had a lot of crazy exes, um he almost, like, thrived off that, like, that's what, his environment was growing up, and so unless that was present, he was, like, not feeling loved or appreciated, and like you said, he just so happens to be the one with the good goods. And they use that, energy to create that chaos around them, so, yeah.
The thing is as well, is like, I was so open, which I was so open, vulnerable, and honest, like, in a way that, again, I'd never been. Because at the beginning, I was like I told him what I needed and what I wanted from our connection. I was like, "We could have a conscious partnership. We can make it different." Like, because I've got these, like I'm emotionally intelligent now, so I wasn't saying it like that, but I was like, we've come from like, we can transform instead of repeating what we've experienced as children and what we've seen growing up, we can change that. Like we can come at we can look absorb, but he wasn't open for that. And so yeah, I was trying to do that with somebody that didn't have the capacity to do that.
Capacity.
Right. He did not have the capacity for that. And but it didn't stop the pain. That's what I mean, because it's in your chakras. It's in those memories, literally those stored emotions or beliefs that have never been able to be felt because you've locked them away because that was the what the wise little child did. I mean, but what's beautiful about it, oh, just got such a tremor of truth, is how it's actually deepened my work, because my work isn't just the receptivity. This is one aspect of my work. The other side is
Mhm.
the sovereign CEO, working with very successful solo and entrepreneurs, founders, leaders, to really go deep into coming into that alignment and building sustainable business, building sustainable relationships, and seeing that these actual patterns, the wealth patterns, the money patterns, how you show up in business, is all rooted in the exact same imprints. So we spoke about money in the father wounds. Like, if you're used to receiving breadcrumbs in a relationship, you're receiving breadcrumbs in your bank account. I don't need to actually look at your bank account. I'll know what is going on. Because if you speak to me and tell me what is going on in your life, I'm going to see there's going to be parallels all over the place.
Right,
Because
that pattern recognition.
at 9 in my chart. But also, codependency is the shadow of 19, but Jinky 40.2, which is my vocation. So it's my big talent and gift to the world, is exhaustion. But why?
Mm.
Because it's codependency. It's rooted in codependency. And the line two, because I did a training with Richard Rudd like a couple of years ago on the prosperity codes, where we looked at the lines of the prosperity sequence. What's it called again? The Pearl sequence. And 40 line 2, even though in the book it's something else. I can't remember the top of my head, but it's actually the pattern is rooted in codependency, and the overworking, the overgiving, giving to depletion, worth. But I know that my main wound in this lifetime has been, how do I overcome low self-worth? So it's not that I came into a family who then created that. I came in with that to the perfect family, and that has then come up with different ways. But also, talking of jinkies, it's like I said to my client the other day, what I've now discovered is that actually all of these universal patterns, that's another one of my lines. Having developed this work recently, I make the universal individual. So when we get your chart, we can take this universal idea, codependency, and then look at how is it showing up in the lens
Mm.
of different. So it's like a kaleidoscope, and each gene key is a little light, and each one reflects a different aspect of how that pattern shows up, right?
Mhm.
Yes. And that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, when you were talking about 40, it made me also think about 55 with that shadow of victimization, because it goes back to that initial thing of what we were saying. Well, what is codependency? It's that idea that the power is somehow outside of you.
Hmm. I Yes, and so I'll just mention, so what would be the evolution of that? What would be a positive relationship? Is the next thing is interdependence. So we've got this
Mhm.
idea that I'm individual, I'm independent, I'm whole in myself, I'm internally referenced. So I'm responsible for my own emotions. So you're in a relationship with somebody, could be a mother even, or a partner or a friend, and they say something that triggers you, or they'd have a behavior pattern. You don't go, "Oh, can you stop doing that? That's really getting on my nerves." You go, isn't that interesting why this is bothering me?" Like, so you're not going to put your emotional response onto somebody else. And I notice, actually, I still have this with my mum. Again, I don't think it's appropriate to really talk about other people without their consent, but there's so much of that pattern showing up. Like, I constantly have to say, "That's yours. It's not mine." She'll say, when you're in a mood, it makes me feel." But I'm saying to her, I'm allowed to have a mood. It's nothing to do with you. I'm allowed to feel a little bit shit one day. And it's not like, because when you feel like that, I don't take it on anymore, because I've learned it's not mine, it's yours. So I don't need to. That's emotional. What would you call that? Emotional what, sovereignty?
Absolutely. And, like self-abandonment awareness, because in order to say yes and take on somebody else's load or burden or emotion, you have to say no to whatever is actually authentic to you. And you abandon your own self in order to take on, the characteristics, emotions, moods, whatever it is that you take from someone else.
Exactly, and actually, yeah, that self-abandonment has been a big well, it's a massive thing for me, my whole
Yeah.
and learning to observe that, and again,
Catch it in real time, like you say, because like, will be in situations with that matriarchal energy, and it's, like, almost second nature to acquiesce and to take on and to soothe and to nurture and to fall into those patterns in that role of darter when, that's not what serves you every time, that's not always the route that you need to take, so being able to notice when you're doing it so that you can interrupt the pattern.
yes.
Notice what your body feels like when that's happening, taking time to review situations in the past where it has happened and getting back into that space. So you can be like, oh, this is what I felt in my body. So I know the next time that I feel this, I need to check in with myself and see what part of myself is being abandoned in that moment that I can be with, as opposed to going externally and being with whatever it is someone else I'm thinking they need me to occupy.
Yes, and I think I mean, it's so important for that internal transformation to happen to actually sit with the feeling. So one of the processes that I have is called the STT method. It's the
Mhm.
spontaneous transformation technique, and it literally, like, it's great when it actually, like, I actually had to go through it last week because, um, again, with this particular brilliant gift to me, that guy, even though we're not even together, we do not talk, we're not. I still get the gift of being able to transform. I had some of his lyrics. I was in Morrison's, like a supermarket, and those lyrics were going through my head, and he was talking about his undying love for another woman, and
Mhm.
and I literally had this surge of pain in my solar plexus and my heart center. I'm in the supermarket, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm really busy right now. I can't deal with this." And it was like, and then, but all that, like, as I heard that, I felt this deep jealousy, as you said, which I've never really had, and this rejection again. And I'm like, I'm not going to abandon myself. I'm going to actually. So the method is I had to literally go on the road, go back out and sit down somewhere for 10 minutes. And I'm like, okay, I get really present with it. And I'm like, okay. And I get into neutral observer and I allow my inner child to I visualize and show me the first time it happened. Let's actually give you presence to feel it, and you work with the inner child, whatever, and energetically unwind it. But yeah, that is how you really overcome self abandonment. You stop abandoning yourself from feeling, and uh, yeah, I was gonna say something about ah the question that I like to ask in that situation that got me out of codependency was and into 100% responsibility, self-responsibility was, do I have an intent to protect or do I have an intent to learn in this moment?
I love that, cause mine is very, similar if you break it down. Cause I'm like there are only 2 intentions, love and
Yeah.
fear, and that's my thing of like, "Okay, am I doing this because I love such and so, or am I doing this because I'm afraid that if I don't, or I'm afraid that, there's gonna be some negative consequence if I don't hop in and play Captain Saver," you know?
Beautiful, and I think that that's a projector power right there. Just literally cutting out all the noise. If there's nothing else you take away from today, am I moving from love or am I moving from fear? Because that question is going to show you the truth, and that really does show you as well. Like, yeah, with the I definitely want to, like, I'm going to change through that experience with him. I want to move with unconditional love. Like, all I was doing was putting conditions on this guy. Conditions like show up, like being demanding, like manipulative, even in so many ways. And then do you know what it was? I was like lying down in the park yesterday. I was in the field, so I get pure aura time. Nobody for miles, just me and the nature. Only 2 people in 5 hours did I see, and they weren't even close to me. And as I was lying there yesterday because yesterday was a day where I said I'm pretty much digital detox, pretty much. 5 hours, I did one post, that was it. And just a little one. And the question that I wrote down in the silence was, "Do I like who I've become about this
Mm.
person?" And that was the question because I think that's a really powerful question to ask yourself because other people don't I don't become that girl around other people.
Yes, so I was working on something yesterday as well, which is crazy, about how there's an aspect of projection. It's, when we're talking about attraction and being drawn to someone and like that intensity and those sparks and that chemistry that you feel, sometimes what you're attracted to is who you become in connection to that person or who they become in connection to you because of your projection onto them. And
Mhm.
that's just like a really powerful thing to understand the difference between who someone actually is in their reality and what it is that we're projecting onto their image. Like when we're idealizing things and when we're being, creating this whole fantasy future, like what you were talking about, telling your friend, oh, we're going to get married. And like you have this whole, life planned out with this version of this person that you made up in your head that is separate from the reality of who they actually are. And being conscious, like you said, of who you are in the connection and whether or not you're showing up as your authentic self and who it is that you really want to be.
I'll tell you how I know. I mean, because another loads of this was what it was showing me as well, like how I was not showing up. I mean, it was partly my authentic self because I'm a woman. I love dressing up. I love lingerie. I've always loved, I used to pole dance. Like I'm erotic. I have a very sensual side I have like that is, but it is it can be like a performance. And what I noticed was I ended up because there was no emotional connection. We did it didn't even last. We only met like 3 or 4 times last that year, and it was like this whole catalog of shit. But I was like, I started to see how I was performing and building that 59 wall again of like performative intimacy. It wasn't performative intimacy. I'd been vulnerable. It was rejected. I wasn't getting emotion that connection that and we had in the first that's what I'm saying in the first because what I thought was just like plug and play. We're just coming back from the original 10 years ago. We're gonna plug in. But because we did share connection, the connection that I didn't imagine. But yeah, I noticed how like every time I went round, I was like I would be dressed up I would be just not who I was. He was even like, "You're gonna just put some normal pajamas on," and I was like I don't really want it. I just want to be this girl because I hadn't been that girl for so long as well. But it was like obviously something there. I don't know. I was my authentic self as well in like all of the expression, but it couldn't be met. So yeah, I don't know. But interdependence. So we come into a connection from a place of sovereignty and wholeness and I guess the phrase I would use is, "I don't need you, but I desire you." Or, "I choose this every day, not from a place of need, but because I desire to." Which I honestly still believe that had it been mutual, I would have been it would have been that's what it would have been for me. But it wa but because but it wasn't reality. It wasn't reciprocal. He was not at that stage that I don't know why, I don't know what, but I went into it with that, in the spirit of that. So
Yeah.
again, it was like I was coming from an evolved aspect of self, but then it just got all muddy.
Yeah, you had to pass through that embodiment, and sometimes that does look really muddy because it's really a practicing part of, like, putting into practice the things that you've learned and,
Yeah.
practice sometimes is muddy. And when we're talking about, like, checkpoints that you can have with yourself. One of the other things that I look at when I'm entering a connection and I'm evaluating the energy between myself and the person that I'm connected to is when I leave interactions with them, how am I feeling, you know? And one of the main places that I check in, of course, you know, like in my body, but in my drive and like in my motivation. Am I spending a lot of my mental energy like ruminating, thinking about this person, imagining a future with them, you know, externally focused?
Yeah.
Or did the energy that I got on, you know, my interaction with this person take me inside further deeper into myself and make me want to explore my passions and work on my projects and put out content and create things, and like did I feel inspired like from within and turn internal, or am I externally facing that energy, because that tells me a lot about the nature of the connection.
God, yes. That's so, like, definitely something I'm gonna take on board because I just got the full tremor of truth there. You're so right. Because it also I think that's a clue about whether this is survival imprint or whether it's a soul like, interdependent and actually coming from that secure energy. Great, great, great. So there's loads of nuggets in this podcast today, in this video. I hope that you get to put, not you, but the audience get
Of
to
course.
with some of these things, and myself actually, you know, I will do so. So is there anything else you want to leave the audience with today? A lasting thought on overcoming or how to know they're in a codependent dynamic, or anything that you want to leave with them, positive thing, anything.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the main thing is being able to shift into that seat of observer and notice when you're self-abandoning. That's going to be like such a pivotal place for all of us to be in that seat of observance, because it gives us an opportunity to create a new pattern when you're in that space between noticing that you're doing something that you've always done and the opportunity to take the next step. You know, being comfortable pausing in that space and having a plan for, okay, well, this is my standard, you know, and knowing ahead of time before you go into connections exactly what it is that you're desiring and what your standards are, so that when someone doesn't fit those standards, you're able to quickly eliminate them and say, okay, this may not be the connection that I want to pursue at this time, because this may not produce what it is that I'm trying to produce. Because desire, you know, a lot of times when we feel desire, it can tell us like, you know, who we're drawn to. And actually, desire can lead us into our fulfillment, but it has to also be paired with discernment in order to really get us to a place of fulfillment. Because desire is just telling you what you gravitate toward and what you're pulled to, but that discernment tells you, okay, what is this going to produce in my life if I go down this route?
Absolutely, really valuable advice. Because that's just to, because I wanted to leave it on that, but because I think it's important to say, from that November, I got that literal higher self desire for sacred union. As I said, I had never desired this before. So this was a true, it came to me. It didn't come from my ego or want or need or lack anything. It was like, okay, this is my next evolution. Like, this is what I want. And so November, December, that 8 weeks, I was I was going deep into the qualities, what I would like in a relationship, what I would, what that's why I was really aware about like conscious. And I've studied all this stuff, but like I'm a one line. Again, it doesn't mean you've embodied it, but I had a foundation over the years of what conscious, because over the years my soul has been guiding me into intimacy and conscious partnership, relationships, not even just intimate partnership over time. And so, but I had spent time to really go, and I brought that with the expectation that that's what it could be. But I was hijacked by this wounding. That's why you've got to do that shadow work, that healing work, because well, I guess that journey took me through to the awareness of discernment. Because like you now, I am definitely going to be in the observer role, like as in not observing myself, but I'm observing. Are you are you moving towards me? Are you initiating and planning dates? Are you able to be accountable? Are we able to have repair? Like there's certain things that I'm not going to chase a motherfucker again, like which is what I was doing because I was driven by that like longing and wanting to fix the disconnection, and trying to get um some sense of transparency from someone who just lived in ambiguity and confusion,
Mhm.
and kept creating that rather than just being honest and direct and clear about intentions and but behavior. And never again would I listen to words and not accept the behavior is the evidence. I'm not gonna so I'm not going to again, it was just wild for me to be in that. But what I'm saying is I was hijacked. So I can know all of that stuff. That's why that energetic work needs to be done. The identity work needs to be done, the
Mhm.
conscious work needs to be done, and the energetic work needs to be your nervous system needs to be rewired. It gets rewired in safe relationship. Thankfully, I had many healthy masculines over the last few years to show me what actual healthy masculine presence is as well, you know? But yeah, still being able to heal that root stuff, the inner child stuff where abandonment was normal and trying to fix the rejection and da 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 da, longing for someone who, with the familiarity of all those maladaptive things and survival strategies.
Mhm.
Okay, so there will be a link in the information if you want to get hold of Sunshine, get hold of that book, work with her. Pain Transformed is the link tree, and it'll be in the thing. If you want to get hold of me and get into the receptivity codes or the rewire your desire or any one-to-one work around evolving patterns and doing it using my system, email me on Instagram or DM me on Instagram or Facebook or you'll find me. People always find me. People always find me. You'll find me. Um, and yeah, leave comments. I would love for people to leave comments so we can actually begin a
Yes.
conversation and even answer questions. And I would love us to actually do this a little bit more frequently. I think we should create a series. Uh,
Absolutely.
And maybe get people in our audience to pose questions beforehand, and then we can respond to that. Because I think we have a great energy, and the wisdom between us is very, very potent for the daughters. We'll do it for the daughter. Do it for the
Do
daughters.
it for the daughters. I love that.
Right, we
I
have
love
to
that.
get.
I love that.
Let me write that down so I don't forget. All right then. So, loving you, world. I'm Jessica Ann, Sunshine Marie, and we are sending you love and evolution.